Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our C# programming tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can get various bits of information about a file using the FileInfo class. Now, unlike file, this class is not static. So we have to create an object for our FileInfo class, and when we create a FileInfo object, we need to give its constructor the path to our file so it knows what file to get the information for. Alright, so let's go ahead and create that FileInfo object by saying FileInfo, we'll call it info, equals a new FileInfo. Oh, wait a second. I see. Okay, so we'll say FileInfo info equals a new FileInfo, and we need to pass it file path. Alright, so that is our FileInfo object. Now there are a few properties that we're going to take a look at. There are some methods, but mostly properties. And we're going to take a look at each, well, not each of them because there's a lot, but we're going to take a look at a few of them. The first one being the exists property. Now, the exists property is a Boolean value that returns true if the file exists at the provided path, and then it will return false if the file you specified does not exist. Okay? So, I hope that you referenced the documentation in the last video to figure out how we can use the file class to see if a file exists. Because the way that we test to see if the file exists is by using our exists property like this. We can say console.writeLine info.exists. Okay, we can save this. I'm going to go into my command prompt here. Okay, so my command prompt is being uncooperative here. E:/cd C# tutorials tutorial lamp video 1. Okay, now we can do a .NET run and we should get true. Alright, it's reading everything to me. Yep, and we get true. Alright, I'm going to remove everything else in my Solution Explorer just because we don't need it anymore. Alright, cool. Now that all that's gone, the next property that we're going to take a look at is the name property. Now, what does this file do? Well, the name property returns the name of the file that we specified. So if it's test.txt like it is here, that's what it will return, test.txt. All right, so we can say console.writeLine info.name. And then another property we're going to take a look at is the full name property. So we'll take a look at these two together, but what does the full name do? Well, the full name property gives us the fully qualified path, or the fully qualified name of our file. Now that is .NET speak for the absolute path of the file, right? So we can say console.writeLine info.fullname, like that. So save this. Let's go ahead and run our code. So we can say .NET run. And you can see we get true because our file exists. We get test.txt because that is our file name. And then we get C#, test.txt because that is the full qualified name of our file. Next, we can get our file's extension using the extension property, and we can test if it even has an extension using the hasExtension property. Now, hasExtension does exactly what you might think. It is a Boolean value that determines whether or not the file has an extension, and then the extension property gives us that extension. Now, the thing you need to remember is that the extension property finds the first dot in your file name and then treats the rest of it as if it was the extension of the file, quote unquote. So if you have a dot file in your code base, or rather as a file that you're trying to read, you're trying to get the extension for whatever reason, it'll just give you the whole file name pretty much if it's a dot file. So let's go ahead and take a look at these properties. So to get the value of our hasExtension and print it to the console, we can say console.writeLine info.hasExtension. I believe the hasExtension is part of FileInfo. Let's actually double check this. So what we can do is we can go into Chrome and we can say FileInfo.hasExtension. Okay, well, Chrome didn't come up like I wanted it to. And we'll say FileInfo.hasExtension C# documentation. All right. We'll skip to main content here. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the file info documentation here and see what we got. We don't want methods. At least I don't believe we do. Okay. So what we're looking for. Okay. Right, okay, yep. So we have our extension property there, you can see. We have our full name. We have a couple other properties here. Okay, so we do not have a has extension property. I thought we did. I guess we do not. So, so we'll just leave that alone. But we could look at the extension property by saying info.extension. Save this. And we go into our command prompt. We can run our code here. Okay. Looks like I may have forgotten a semicolon somewhere. Yes, I did. So save that. Run the code again. And here we go. And you can see in our final console write line, we get .txt because that is our extension. Now again, the extension property gets everything after and including the first period in the file name. So if it's a dot file, it's pretty much the entire file name. If you have dots throughout your file name for whatever reason, then keep that in mind because it might be inaccurate. It might be slightly inaccurate if you're just using the extension property of the FileInfo class. All right, so the last ones I want to. The next ones I want you to take a look at are some of the properties that have to do with creation time, last access time, stuff like that. So let's say we want to get the date and time the file was created. Well, we can do that and print it out to the console by saying console.writeLine info dot, I believe it's created date. Info dot let's see, we want creation time. And now let's say we want to get the last time the file was accessed. Well, that is the last access time property, and we can print that out to the console using console.writeLine info dot last access time. And let's say we want to get the last time that the file was written to. Well, we can use the last write time property of our file info, like this. So Visual Studio had a pretty good suggestion there. Console.writeLine, info.lastWriteTime. So go ahead and save this and run your code. Now when we run it, we get every other value. And so there's the creation time, there is the last access time, and the last written to time, or last like the date or the last time it was written to, right? So last time I wrote to those was today. The last time I accessed it was today, but I created the file on the 2nd of March. All right, so that pretty much does it for how we can use the FileInfo class to get some information about a file in C#. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.